I am very confident that the importance and the necessity and the value of employee benefits is only going to increase. What I hope is true is I hope that we can look back and say, hey, those things that once seemed immovable are solved, they're stabilized, they're normalized. So many things that once felt impossible. Bills are right, data is right, systems are integrated. Now, what else can we do?
Welcome to another episode of The Current, a bi-monthly podcast exploring the intersection of people, finance, and data. I'm Ansel Parikh, the co-founder of Finch and the connectivity platform for the employment ecosystem. Today, I'm joined by Dana Jenkins. Dana is the vice president, head of transformation at Unum, one of the largest providers of disability, life, and supplemental benefits in the United States. During his career at Unum, he's led product management for Broker Connect, spearheading the company's digital integration strategy with platforms like Employee Navigator. And now he helps oversee Unum's broader transformation agenda with quoting and platform connectivity. Before moving into product management back in 2017, he spent 6 years in billing operations. So Dana, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
Yeah. And so kind of looking back at your history and some of the things that you've done in your career, you've said a majority of it, right, in insurance and benefits, focusing on technology and the customer experience. And so maybe taking a step back, what drew you to the benefit space, and kind of how did that customer experience orientation really shape the way you approach product transformation at Unum?
Yeah, so truth be told, Ansel, I grew up around it. My father, who is Mike Jenkins, he's been working in group and voluntary insurance in some capacity for over 50 years, including a long career at Provident, which merged with Unum in 1999. He's still working today as a broker and as a case builder. And I will tell you that sometimes my wife and my stepmom, his wife, have to call timeout on the insurance nerd talk at family dinners and cookouts where it's like, okay, enough about plan configuration and enrollment. Like, okay. So I I love the benefit space because it matters. It matters to people. Like people use their benefits when something significant has happened in their life. And to be able to offer financial protection and say, hey, here's one less thing to worry about is powerful. And I don't personally process claims or pay benefits, and I never have. You just read out my background. But I like to say that in a way we all do, because it's our job to keep the runway clear so that there's nothing between people and their benefits when they need them. And to your question about a CX background, I would say one of the things I most appreciate about the digital transformation space at Unum is that we are pretty relentless to hold each other accountable for two questions. One is, what's the problem you're trying to solve? And then what's the experience you're trying to enable? If we can get those questions right, then the technology or even the process engineering that we need comes into focus, and we'll be delivering solutions to a problem, not in search of a problem.
Yeah, I really like that, especially in this day and age of, AI. There's a lot of solutions looking for problems. It really sounds like you've grounded yourself in what is the core thing we're trying to do. And then I do like that you add the what is the experience we have to deliver, because I think at
Right.
the end of the day, insurance is a pretty commoditized business at its core, but there's so many things that technology as well as operations can do to really drive a much better experience. And that's where that differentiator really starts to play out. And I think that's where you see Unum really kind of take steps forward, kind of ahead of the pack to really find ways to build innovation there.
Yeah.
But I did
And we've all
want,
done that, by the way. We've all done that where we started with the tech or we started with the solution. We've all done it, which is how we've learned that the way to go about it is to actually start with the problem and the experience, and that will inform the tech you need.
yeah, definitely. And I know there's a lot of problems in the insurance space. I think no industry is without them, but I did want to highlight one that we've heard commonly, and it's one that you particularly have spent a lot of time thinking about. That's kind of it's on the customer experience side, but it's also kind of on the core infrastructure at an insurance company, and that's a problem related to premium leakage. And so
Hmm.
I've been reading a bunch about this. I'm trying to just get a better sense of like what's the impact of this, and I've seen kind of estimates anywhere between kind of 5 to even 20% of annual premiums collected, or not collected actually, during the reconciliation process due to billing inaccuracies, process gaps. And, when even if you take a few percent and you put that into a massive book of billions of dollars, right? Those are pretty staggering numbers. And so for someone who's not a nerd like us, especially you and the fact that you've got a family background in this, can you walk us through like what premium and billing leakage actually look like in practice, and where does that money go?
Yeah, I'll do my best. I do enjoy nerding out on this topic as well. So, simply put, premium leakage is a gap between what the carrier, like Unum, was paid in premium and what the carrier should have been paid in premium based on the policy rates and rules. Like a really simple example would be if your car insurance premium is $200 a month and you paid 170, there's now $30 of premium leakage there, right? Multiply that out by hundreds of thousands of people, you've got a pretty significant, problem on your hand. And I will say that 15 years in this space, I have very rarely seen ill intent here. Like employers want to do the right thing for their
Hmm.
employees. They want to do the right thing for the carriers that they've chosen. This stuff is just very hard. And between system configuration issues, data exchange issues, processing issues on the carrier side, and just a simple misunderstanding of the process, it's easy for the boat to leak. And I will say it's not always easy to know that the boat is leaking until there's like a lot of water, unfortunately. I remember getting into this space and getting introduced to the concept of self-accounting, which is like, you tell us what you owe. Right?
Oh,
Well, I mean, it'd be
I
like
wish
if the
everyone worked like that.
right, it's like if the electric company said, hey, can you go figure out how much electricity you used last month and then pay us for it? So your initial reaction is that it seems crazy to put that on customers. But at the same time, if you have a customer with 1,000 employees, 2,000 employees, 5,000 employees, no one's going to get a highlighter out and reconcile a bill person by person. So it sometimes becomes the best of two, not always great options.
Yeah. Well, why do you think it's been tolerated for so long? Like, obviously, that self-reporting models. It seems like there could be a lot of holes, but I can understand from a customer experience standpoint, right? I mean, you kind of have to find some middle ground. But is it a technology problem? Is it a process problem? If you think about root causes, like where do you think the kind of the bottleneck is to solving this?
Yeah, it's complicated. So let's hone in on disability earnings and why this becomes so complicated. So first thing to know is there's two concepts with long-term disability. There is covered payroll, which is the earnings that we are covering.
Hmm.
And then there is covered benefit, as in how much will the employee actually get paid if they go on approved disability. And the benefit is generally going to be a percentage of the covered payroll. I would say the most common one in the industry is 60%, but it doesn't have to be. You'll see some other options. So the industry standard is that premium is calculated off of the payroll that we're covering. That's like the risk factor is the
Hmm.
payroll we're covering, not the benefit that we would actually pay. And a very common mistake that we see in both system setup and in manual calculations is that the carrier ends up getting paid off of the payable benefit instead of the covered payroll, which results in a 40% premium leakage for the LTD plan. And I know someone who's listening to this who's not as close to the space, they may ask, and this is a fair question, how can you not catch a 40% discrepancy like right away? Right? Like, very fair question. But again, in a self accounting model where you're dealing with bottom line aggregate numbers, it might take some type of tripwire to figure out that
Mm.
there's a problem, like a claim, an audit, a renewal. Something will bring it to the surface and then it gets messy. So that's the first part that makes it complicated, right? These concepts of earnings versus benefit, how premium is calculated one way, claim payments are calculated another. The second thing that adds complexity is what the industry calls definition of earnings. So
Mm.
let's say we have a long-term disability plan that will pay 60% of covered earnings up to $10,000 a month. Sounds straightforward. What do you mean by earnings though? Right? Because for a lot of workers, their income is a mixed bag of base pay, overtime, shift differentials, bonuses, commissions, special incentives, holiday pay. And as an employer, you want carriers to take all of those components into consideration when calculating benefits, and for a very good reason. You want a comprehensive benefit for your employees. And if the employee goes out on disability, you want them to get everything that they're entitled to. And so do we. But it does make managing the data a lot more complicated than just like take your last paycheck and multiply it by 26, right? There's a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah, no, it's pretty fascinating. If I look at Unum's customer base, you run the gambit, right? You work with Fortune 500s all the way down to the small mom and pop
Mhm.
shops, helping them offer these types of benefits. How does that differ if they're like, say, on an employee nav versus they've got their own Ben admin system in Workday and they're 5,000 people versus 50? Does that make it like 10 times harder, 1,000 times harder? Or is there like kind of some things that you can do at different stages that allow you to kind of at least cap or contain some of that leakage as it gets larger in the
Yeah.
company?
So you think about premium leakage for a company with 50 people versus a company with 5,000, it just shows up different. Obviously, the financial impact is going to be more significant at a large company as if you think about dollars, but it shows up differently. So a company that has 50 people is likely going to be list billed, which means that we have the employee data in our system. But
Mhm.
that's not perfect either, though, because it can get dated. It can get stale. It may not reflect recent years' promotions and earnings. But then with 5,000 people, we're not going to have employee level detail in our system. That's a self accounting, self administrator customer who is paying bottom line numbers, which does make the overall administration easier. Like I said, no one's going to get out a highlighter and reconcile a bill with thousands of people on it, but it does make it easy for problems to hide out sometimes. And if you don't catch them early or proactively, there is usually some type of thing that brings it to the surface, like a claim, like a renewal, or some type of audit. So you asked about Employee Nav and Workday, and I appreciate you asking about that because we are very proud of what our teams have built for customers and brokers through HR Connect and Broker Connect. You'll see both of those experiences out there in market. HR Connect really focuses on the larger market where customers have chosen their HR technology like Workday or ADP. Broker Connect really focuses on the smaller market where brokers are the primary decision maker and they provide the technology solution like Employee Navigator. And so what I would say is even though those two capability sets serve different markets and personas, they're solving many of the same administrative pain points,
Mhm.
including billing. So what we've done is we've built solutions that capture data directly from these systems and automatically calculate and create an invoice on behalf of the customer. And why we feel like that's a really good day and why we felt like it was worth the time and investment to do that is first of all, there's no list bill reconciliation against our system. The customer's platform is the source of truth and the system of record. If you say they're employed and you say they're enrolled, so do we. But then at the same time, no more manual self-accounting, right? No complicated reports and VLOOKUPs and spreadsheets and earning calculations formulas and pivot tables. We do all that for the customer, right? Through that system integration. We take a picture of the data and we give it back to them as a bill. Now, that does require us to kind of break some long held assumptions, right? Like it's been an
Mhm.
industry standard for decades. Small customers must do list bill. Here's a bill. This is what our system thinks is true. Grade our homework and fix it for us. Not a great experience. With large customers, it's like, well, they have to do self accounting because they're so big. So you go off and do the work to tell us what you owe. So it kind of goes back to what I said at the beginning. Like we identified the problem, we identified the experience we wanted, and then we built the tech and the process to get there, which is that your bill is a reflection of what's in your system, but we're going to do the work for you.
Yeah, no, I mean, you put in a lot of work and effort. I know building to those systems is no easy task, and there's always fun edge cases with every employer when they kind of configured things. And so I think like when we look at this problem, it's pretty fascinating because it is like a unique problem that kind of hurts everyone, right? Like carrier
Hmm.
collecting less than it should, employee overpaying or underpaying, and employees might not even have the coverage they think they have. Like that is just an all around like, oh wow, we've got to solve this. And so I'm curious, like at least with the stuff that you've done with the HR Connect and Broker Connect, what's been the feedback from customers? You've kind of had to put a little bit of a behavior change here.
Yeah, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, and the feedback that we get most commonly is just how much time we've saved
Hmm.
customers. And that's a really great thing to hear because we know that time is expense right? And we know that HR professionals, especially at a smaller company where there's not like a huge HR and benefits department, they have so much going on, right? These folks do not have a ton of time that they can set aside for ancillary supplemental benefits like ours. And so one of the things that we would often hear from customers is like, you just take up too much of my time and you just made it too hard. And so we've been able to, through these integrations, through these automations, we've been able to take a process that customers told us took anywhere from 6 to 10 hours a month to
Oh,
get all the data ready and pay down to 30 minutes to an hour, depending on what level of internal reconciliation they do. So that's the number one thing we've heard is you've given me back a lot of time, which
yeah.
they need.
And it's time that you don't want to spend doing reconciliation. I can tell from all the HR people we've talked to, and myself included, it's like kind of very low on the list, but it's one of those like absolutely essential things you have to do. Otherwise, your employees aren't going to get the benefits, won't get the coverage you need. And so kind of the thread that I'm seeing throughout the whole process is this, like, the heart of this issue is like kind of at its core a data problem, something you are uniquely kind of suited to address and understand, where carriers need the data accurately from employees, you need the pay data, right? And oftentimes in the past, they're the last ones to get it because asking for it can be a pretty big ask for a large company or even a small one with few people. And so I guess when you look at, the evolution of this ecosystem, obviously Finch is helping play the part there, but I guess what are some of the things that the opportunities you see in the future in a world where like all this data is a little bit more connected, you do have like timely information. Are there other things like say around the corner that you go, "Oh, if we could build this or we could create this additional experience improvement?" We think that's going to be where like kind of the industry is going. I'm curious if you've been kind of exposed to that or thinking about that as data becomes more accessible.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're very proud of the solutions we've built for Workday and ADP and Employee Navigator, but that is definitely an investment of time and resources and energy. So I mean, if you think about like, magic wand, imagine if we could do that at broad scale. If we can capture that data real time and point in time, just think about the end-to-end automation and accuracy and simplicity we could deliver with enrollment, with evidence of insurability, with billing, with verifying eligibility for benefits, and even leave administration, which is becoming more and more of a need as the leave landscape is getting much more complicated across the country. More states are rolling out their own state programs in addition to the federal program. So you think about that ability to kind of enable that digital end-to-end experience like at broad scale. That's the dream. That's the game changer.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely makes sense. And again, main thing is for the employer, you want it to make it seem like magic, right? It's all happening behind the scenes. It's all happening accurately, happening in real time. I think that's something that, we all dream for. And I think we're getting there.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe my second last question is like, on that journey, where do you think we are on that? Like on a scale of like, 1 to 10 in terms of 10 being like, we're almost there, connected. We have everything we want as an industry. One being like, no, everything's gonna be paper and pen for the next 10 years. I'm curious how you kind of see where we are and maybe where we need to go next.
That is a great question. I think I might want to say somewhere around a 6 or a 7, right? Change is hard. It really is, especially when you're talking about long-standing industry norms, right? These are hard to change, but I will say they're not impossible to change, right? Like we've seen some really good work in recent years through LIMRA and through the LDEX standards where carriers and technology partners are coming together to say like, let's set some standards to streamline the experience for our customers and broker partners who engage the full market. Let's remove some friction from the process. And we're a limber partner here at Unum as well. And I'll also say this, that like here at Unum, we don't mind at all to be different and to show up differently. So we're not going to start from a place of, well, this is a decades old industry norm, therefore we're stuck. Nope,
Hmm.
we don't mind to push on that. But we do want to make sure that we're showing up differently in ways that really matter to customers and brokers. So like we could come out and say, hey, we've come up with a new way to calculate disability earnings and premiums that's easier for us. But this isn't about what's easier for us, right? This
Hmm.
is about the problem we're solving, which is employers want really comprehensive benefits for their employees that are also easy to administer. So I think I gave a 6 or a 7, Ansel, because it's like we're much further along than we used to be, but we're not nearly as far as we need to be. And I would say, especially with emerging AI solutions, right? It's a podcast. We have to talk about AI, right? It's like a
Yeah, I was going
dual.
to say.
I will say that I've been in this space for 15 years. It feels to me like the pace of change in the market and the tech landscape is as fast as I've ever seen it. And so I think the challenge for carriers like us is that what may be considered innovative solutions today may simply be like table expectations tomorrow. And so this isn't to discount the great work we've done. I mean, you've heard me say many times that we're proud of HR Connect, Broker Connect. We're proud to be a LIMRA partner. We have multiple LDEX solutions available in market, but we can't rest on our laurels. It's got to be foot on the gas right now.
I love that you brought up AI. I mean, obviously, yeah, it wouldn't be a tech podcast without some of
That's
that.
right.
When you're looking at, new AI solutions, what are kind of the top one or two questions you ask yourself to really understand, like, again, solution looking for a problem or something that's actually tangibly addressing a real need? Because it's always fascinating to see how different people that have a lot more context on the industry or how things actually work behind the scenes have been looking at these solutions.
Yeah, I would say the lens at which I look at it through is how can we free up time for people to do what they do best, which is be consultative, empathetic experts, guiding people through what can be a very complicated space. And the more like task oriented stuff that we can take off people's plates through things like AI, that creates more bandwidth for our people to do what they do best, which is show up as experts when people need them. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, that's smart. Maybe the counterpoint to that question is there one piece of this ecosystem value layer that you think AI shouldn't touch for at least a while? I'm curious if there's any piece that you go, hey, having a human there is going to be really valuable, especially in a world where everything else becomes automated and bots.
Yeah, I think that you'll see here at Unum, we are definitely being aggressive and we want to be innovative, but we also want to be very disciplined. And I think one thing that comes to mind for your question, Ansel, is definitely around claims decisions. Now, don't
Hmm.
get me wrong, there's a lot that AI can do to help set the stage for a timely, accurate claim decision. But we know that at the end of the day, there does need to be an expert in that process to make sure that we're making the best decision for the employee and their employer. And there's a lot of prep work that goes into a claim or case review with like pulling documents together and that. So there's certainly an opportunity for AI to help like streamline the
Hmm.
review process. But at the end of the day, it goes back to what I was saying is what are we trying to do? We're trying to free up time for what? So we can show up as the consultative, empathetic experts in market and for our customers when they need us.
Yeah, no, it's really refreshing, and it's good that you're being disciplined about this. I think it's always something that it's very easy to get sucked into the hype, but it's really important to go again that grounding of this is a problem that are we solving a real problem and are we creating a better experience for the employers, employees. So I have
Yeah.
one closing question, kind of wrapping everything up that I ask everyone, and especially since you brought up how fast technology is changing today versus any other time in the last 15 years. So given everything we've talked about today, how do you think all these shifts will change what your job looks like in
Mhm.
5 years?
That's a great question. So I'd say two things. One is I am very confident that the importance and the necessity and the value of employee benefits is only going to increase. And I say that because we know that working families and young adults who are getting started, they have a lot of challenges to navigate with the cost of healthcare, the cost of education, housing, childcare. So financial protection for the unexpected or even the expected, like starting a family, is only going to become more important and valuable. And then what I hope is true is I hope that we can look back and say, hey, those things that once seemed immovable are solved, they're stabilized, they're normalized. So many things that once felt impossible. Bills are right, data is right, systems are integrated. Now what else can we do? What else can we do that we haven't even thought of yet? Because we're going to clear the runway for so many of the things that seem like such big problems today.
Yeah, for sure. When I look at this, it's like, oh, the things we're solving today are going to be, and I'm hoping table stakes in the next couple of years. And now we're solving maybe more important ones that are more people oriented. I'm excited for that future, but it is, as you noted, it's hard work, man.
It's
Getting
hard. Yeah.
us there, it's not simple, but anything worth doing is going to be hard. And so I'm glad that you're still sticking with it, and you got another 15 years plus to keep going. But with that, Dana, I really appreciate you nerding out with me on this
Yeah.
ecosystem,
It's fun.
talking about things that many of our viewers may have heard of but don't fully understand. And I know I learned a lot. Thanks again for coming on, and looking forward to learning more and seeing how this industry evolves together.
Thanks for having me.